Today's episode of This Week in Startups is brought to you by MailChimp. Manage lists with 2,000 subscribers and send up to 12,000 emails per month for free with MailChimp. And by Audible.com, a leading provider of spoken audio information and entertainment. Listen to audiobooks whenever and wherever you want. Visit audible.com/twist for your free audiobook. And Amazon Web Services. The fastest growing, hottest startups build their businesses on Amazon Web Services. Learn more at aws.amazon.com/startups.
Hey everybody, it's your boy Jason Calacanis here, and it's going to be an amazing episode of This Week in Startups. These are two exclusive interviews I did at the Launch Mobile event. The first is Mike McCue of Flipboard. As you know, that company has tens of millions of people using their magazine-styled app on their mobile phones and iPads. They've raised tens of millions of dollars. It's gorgeous. It's a mobile-first product. And as you all know, it's getting better and better. They introduced these self-publishing magazines, and we have a real big discussion around that. Mike's an incredible entrepreneur, and he tackled a lot of the difficult discussions head-on in this great interview, if I do say so myself. And then right after Mike McCue from Flipboard, is Tom Conrad, the long-term CTO of Pandora, and he's going to explain all about how Pandora grows their like database and their human music project. It's incredible. These are two of my favorite interviews from the actual event. Stay with us.
That's what it's all about, man. They said money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah, money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah, we ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
Okay, wow, so you are having massive success. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
Plug this in. How many people here have Flipboard on their device? Okay, Pandora-like experience. How many people have used Flipboard in the last, sorry to do this to you, 30 days though? Okay, so it looks like actually about 2/3. So almost everybody's got it and 2/3 have used it. That's got to be pretty awesome for you.
It feels great. We have a lot of work to do still, but it feels great.
Staying humble. How many people use Flipboard every day?
Well, we haven't released those numbers recently, but it's in the millions.
Millions of people a day?
A day, every day, yeah.
How does that compare to, say, the New York Times or the Washington Post?
I don't know.
It's more. Or it's similar.
Well, we have both of those on Flipboard.
Right,
so,
exactly.
Probably, 10 to 15% of the digital readership of the New York Times reads New York Times on Flipboard.
Oh, wow. So you raised $50 million at an $800 million valuation or something to that effect. What's in the news? Mm-hmm. And I think you guys confirmed it in a blog post. Yeah,
we did. It's a great step for us. We're building a company that's going to be here to stay, a durable, startup that I am, just incredibly thrilled to be building.
In my experience, people tend to make those bets on only the companies that have a clear path to profitability and revenue. And when we last talked a couple of years ago, it was not clear exactly how Flipboard would make money, and there was, in fact, a little controversy around the advertising. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming that's been answered. So tell us how, we all know how Flipboard works. You flip through stories and et cetera, and it learns a little bit about you.
Yeah.
How is the advertising and monetization going? Because I see beautiful ads in there.
Yeah, well, let me show you, since that's probably the easiest way to describe it. And as I'm showing you, I'll tell you our motivation here. We're building Flipboard because we believe that great content moves the world forward. And if you find a great article that someone has written and you're a politician, it will change how you think about how you lead. Or if you're a parent, you could become a better parent because of something you read. And this kind of really great content is in danger as we move to an online world, principally because of monetization. There are paywalls, and for a few elite brands, you can actually charge people to use your content online. But advertising still is nowhere even close to supporting great journalism on a website or in a mobile environment. And so what we wanted to try to do is reform the ad experience and the whole business model. And so, for example, here we have Vanity Fair, and as I flip through Vanity Fair on Flipboard, you'll see this gorgeous full-page ad. I don't have to wait for it to download. It's not blinking at me. It's not, it's just a beautiful full-page ad, just like I would see in the Vanity Fair magazine. that ad sells for 10 times what a banner ad would sell for. And what's beautiful about this ad is that it not only it takes up a full page of real estate to display the ad, and then you have a full page of real estate to display the content, just like a magazine.
Right.
And this is really a big deal. Something that, if you look online, the whole, screen is sort of segmented by, the ads and the toolbars and all the navigation, and there's very little room for the content to really shine through. And that's something that we wanted to change here. And so these ads are sold by our publishing partners, in this case Vanity Fair. They can sell these ads.
And they're in fact selling full-page ads on a pretty regular basis. But
that's right.
So are these being sold bundled with or in conjunction with the print ads they're already selling?
Yes, absolutely. They're bundled and packaged, and and also we sell the ads as well and give those referrals back to our publishing partners. So it's kind of a dual model. This ad is a great example of what sort of the height of advertising is on Flipboard so far. This is not only a beautiful ad, but if you tap on it, it actually takes you to a magazine that Levi's and a bunch of other really interesting sort of thought leaders around fashion are curating on Flipboard that you can actually read right here. So let's see here. It's taking,
we got a little content issue, a little Wi-Fi issue.
And so as I flip through this, you'll see all this great content that Levi's is curating.
And this is the new magazine feature you have where
that's right.
Anybody can create a magazine.
Anyone can create a magazine.
And this would be, do you consider this native advertising or native curation? What is this?
Yeah, it's native advertising, absolutely. Yeah. I think advertising needs to be rethought for the mobile environment. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to kind of take the model of advertising to a new level where we can blend some of the great ideas of the past, beautiful print style full page ads, and some of the ideas of the new, more interactive, more social. You can actually buy things, et cetera. So that's something that we're really excited about. And the business model has gone great. It's something that is really important for us, not just for our company, but more importantly for the publishers. In order for publishers to be on Flipboard, they have to be able to make more money than they can on their websites, right? So that's what we're trying to do.
Have any publishers just wholesale given up on their website and said, just go to our Flipboard? Or, we're going to have our content only there?
No, not yet.
Is that something you think could happen where they say, like, hey, just go to the Flipboard experience? Or
in the fullness of time, I could see something like that playing out, but not for a while. I think you're going to have websites, and there'll always be that normal web experience that you see in a web browser. And then, Flipboard is a really great experience for people who are on a mobile device.
Right. Hey, everybody, let's just take a break, a pause for the cause, and let me tell you about MailChimp. This is the mail program that I have been using for years. I use it for the launch mailing list. I use it for the This Week in Startups mailing list and the jasonnation.com mailing list. The free plan of MailChimp is always free, and you can have 2,000 subscribers and send 12,000 emails per month, and that means you have no excuse. You have to set it up. And if you look, Facebook and Twitter and all these different social networks, they want you to embrace and invest in their products, but you never get the email addresses, right? Isn't that interesting? How YouTube owns all the users' email addresses, but the YouTube channel providers own none? That is what I call BS, and I've routed around it by getting the email addresses of the super fans on This Week in Startups or for the launch ticker, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you want to grow up and you want to have a real business, you need to get the email addresses of your users. Don't be afraid to ask for it, and don't be afraid to use the most elegant product on the market, which is MailChimp. And they just rolled out the brand new MailChimp, which is optimized for tablets. It's got a cleaner design, much less clutter, and it's really great for team collaboration. There is no contract. There is no trial. The free plan is always free. I have been a huge fan of MailChimp. You all know that. And I give it my highest endorsement. And you should thank @MailChimp on your Twitter handle. Thank you @MailChimp for being a multi-year sponsor. I think at this point they're the longest running advertiser sponsor on This Week in Startups. And for that, I am truly thankful. But more importantly, I'm thankful for a great product. MailChimp. Let's get back to the program. Right. And so you said before the ads go for a magnitude more than banner ads.
Yeah.
Are you referring to like $2 or $3 CPM banner ads, and it goes for $50 or something for one of those experiences?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, did I guess the actual?
No. Well, the pricing, the pricing is at that order of magnitude different, and you can see CPMs anywhere from that level on up.
Oh, really? So that Levi's could be even more.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And does Vanity Fair making money off of or any of these brands making money off of doing the actual content creation as well? Or is that what you do?
Well, the content creation is done by the publishing partners at that.
Well, the Levi content creation,
right?
So then,
yes. So
because there's this question of who actually does the content. Is it the platform Flipboard, Vanity Fair, or some content person at Levi's who makes jeans?
Depends on the marketer. Some brands are extremely good at making their own content. GoPro is a good example, or Red Bull. Levi's, where they actually create content. They have a staff, they have videographers, and they do all sorts of stuff. And also, you can point at other content that is relevant to your brand. So, for example, Delta did a brand magazine on Flipboard that was all about the science of sleep, because they wanted to sort of get you into taking their red eye. So they had this beautiful, full-page ad. When you tap on it, you see all these great articles that they curated about the science of sleep.
And so your clients and your partners are becoming as much the brands as the magazines.
Yeah.
The brands are in competition with the magazines in some cases. I mean, Red Bull is in competition with ESPN.
Well, I think that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I don't think, Red Bull's never going to write an amazing article about Syria, right? Or about why the fish are dying in the ocean. Red Bull's going to show a guy jumping out of
which competes with Discovery.
A hot air balloon. Yeah.
Discovery did the guy trying to kill himself walking across the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
And Red Bull's trying to kill somebody jumping from space. They're both trying to.
There's definitely some element of that. I think this is a brave new world, and content is king, and marketers know that, just like publishers. I think that's something that marketers are starting to realize that's important that they need to invest in. Now I think you're seeing them partner with a lot of these publishers to make that happen as well.
What impact has the create your own magazine functionality had on traffic and Flipboard? Because it felt to me like Flipboard had almost hit a ceiling of, okay, there's a certain amount of content in it and a certain amount of people interested in that content, and it felt like it was almost starting to wane, but that breathed incredible new life into it. Am I accurate from the outside?
Well, we've been growing consistently, but the magazine capability allowed us to grow even faster. We now add about 200,000 users every day on Flipboard. Sometimes more like 250,000, 300,000 users on a weekend in a day. And so that growth obviously is fantastic. That's about twice as fast as it was about 6 months ago. We've grown well over 60% since we launched the magazine capability. And that's been exciting. That's been a really great aspect. And I can show you a couple of magazines
how much traffic
here.
Show us some of the magazines. I know Scoble is crazy about this, and he's in the app for hours a day. Or one of his clones.
Yeah.
But how much of the overall traffic to Flipboard is occurring in magazines, like that you don't control, that are user-generated magazines?
Right.
Half the traffic, a third of the traffic?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we're probably approaching a third of the traffic.
Wow.
Yeah, and the thing about magazines that I love is, these are, this is kind of an endangered thing, but if you go to these newsstands, these physical newsstands in, let's say, like a Barnes & Noble or something, you'll see magazines about anything you could possibly imagine, right? If you love, cigars, there are magazines about cigars, and I love that about magazines, that you can dive in deep into some passion that you have. My dad used to do model railroading. You can buy, multiple magazines about model railroading. This one is an example of a magazine. This is actually by Al Gore, and he actually just curates the things that he reads during the week. And it's pretty cool, it's just like, this is the stuff that's sort of influencing Al Gore. This is another magazine that I read all the time. I'm really into kind of maritime geeky stuff. So this is like what's happening on the high seas with like big cargo ships and Navy ships and so on. It's just, incredibly niche-y. But, what's amazing
you're a weird dude, Mike.
I know, I love this stuff.
You're into cargo ships?
Exactly.
We learned something.
I love that. I love naval exploration.
Oh,
right?
okay, that's different. And specifically cargo ships.
And that magazine has like 6,000 readers. Yeah, no,
cargo ship.
More than just
aficionado.
Exactly. I've always wanted to go for a sail on a cargo ship, actually.
Really? Really?
Yeah, I mean, how cool would that be?
Like, a boy
to
can
go
dream.
in the amazing, ocean with like this incredible storm
Just
and like
cargo ships, just like
Yeah.
the containers everywhere.
Exactly, man.
I feel you.
I can't wait to see Captain Phillips, that movie that's
I
coming
know. I was
out.
about to ask you that. Tom
Yeah.
Hanks movie must be.
That I'm very much looking forward to
Midnight
seeing
showing,
that.
huh?
Exactly. But that's what's so awesome is that this magazine's being curated by a guy who's a Coast Guard officer. And so he just has an eye for this type of content. There's 6,600 readers of this magazine.
All right,
And I'll show you one more that
Yeah.
I really like. This was one I'm actually curating. This is called Designica. And I'm actually co-curating it with another woman named Mia. And this is actually just a kind of a visual music playlist. And you can do things like listening to music that I've curated from SoundCloud in this case. You can
Yeah.
hear it here. And I can just sort of flip through and just sort of have this awesome sort of visual, musical
trippy, yeah.
experience. Yeah, and anybody can subscribe to this and look at it. And then, let's see, I've got 736 readers so far.
So it's like a zine level. This seems to put you as, in a way, a publisher. Like you're now also Condé Nast in enabling it. If a third of people are using the sort of user-generated magazines, it's clearly on the way to becoming the majority use case. And we saw this happen with YouTube. A lot of people call you the YouTube of magazines, which means you have to be able to make money at some point for the people making the magazines or curating the magazines.
Absolutely.
So when can I curate a magazine and monetize it? And that becomes my full-time job. So my Designica is my job.
Right.
And I share in the revenue.
Yeah, that's something that we are working toward. We're not there yet. A lot of people have asked us for that. We do have folks who've curated magazines that have hundreds of thousands of readers, approaching 1 million readers, and we want people to be able to monetize that. Of course, if they're creating their own content, then it's a lot easier for us to help them monetize.
Sure.
If they're just curating, a publisher content, then they are driving traffic to those publishers. There's got to be some way that ultimately we can create a win-win for the publisher and for the curator. There.
Well, it'd be a win-win-win because you have to win too.
Well, at some level, but
Yeah.
we think about it as publishers first have to win.
Right.
And that's a very important first principle that we have at the company. If we do that well, then I'm sure Flipboard will do well in the long run.
So if I pull in a Vanity Fair article for
Yeah.
my, culture zine,
Yeah.
as it were, and they had the Levi's ad attached to that
That's right. It
story
travels with
already,
it.
it could
travels
bundle with it.
That's right.
It currently does.
It does.
But the revenue share doesn't happen.
Not with the curator yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. But that's something that we'd like to, enable, some point in the future.
That's mind-blowing.
It is mind-blowing. That's why it's
Because
in the future.
you'll be able to basically say you could become a publisher, and if you get to 25, I mean, Scoble has 25, 100,000
Yeah.
people on some of his
Yeah.
magazines.
Yeah.
100,000 Cirque magazine.
Right.
At $50 CPMs, a couple ads in there. If he got a third of the ad or 50% of the ad or whatever he shared with the publisher,
Yeah.
could be quite meaningful.
Absolutely.
Could be thousands of dollars a month.
It could be. And, I think there are people who are tastemakers who drive traffic to important content that, is very geared around that taste. People are by far the best search algorithm, and so if we can enable some benefit for them, financially, that would obviously be huge.
Has there been any talk of, internally with your company or let's say with a partner, of the same way YouTube has become a farm league for Comedy Central, Tasho sort of graduating, iJustine graduating to other real cable channels,
Right.
of a magazine, Designica, becoming a Condé Nast publication quarterly?
Yeah, I would love to see that happen. That is absolutely a goal that I'm working toward over time.
Yeah.
And, I really feel like, similar to what Matt's doing on the story level which I'm incredibly impressed with what he's done.
With Circa.
With Circa.
Yeah.
I think there's an opportunity to fundamentally rethink the idea of the magazine. The magazine first came out, the first magazine was published by Benjamin Franklin in 1756 in the United States. And the idea of a magazine sort of pulling together content that other people have created into some sort of thematic package will never go away. But it's going to totally change from what it is today. And there's a huge opportunity to work with the publishers and the content creators to kind of rethink what that should be in this new mobile social era.
Been a lot of opportunity for you guys to exit this business, from what I understand. Raising money at a high valuation like you're doing, it sort of sets you up for, you're going to be an independent company and go public. You're on the track that it really can't be sold now. It would have to be a very big acquisition. I mean, it's possible. Yahoo bought Tumblr for a large number, but you're in it for the long term. You're going to build this company, take it public, and not sell it, correct?
Well, I
mean, this is personal for you as the founder, because the founder gets to decide at the end of the day. They're not, your board can't just take this company and sell it without you. The company's largely you.
Well, this is my life's work.
Yeah.
And not just me, but my teams.
Yeah.
And, this is something that, we're incredibly passionate about. It's a long-term journey. On a scale of 1 to 10, in terms of where we want to be, we're at like 0.8. We think there's so much more that can be done. I was just telling Tom earlier, I'm so impressed with how he built Pandora over the years. That kind of entrepreneurship that, spans a decade and more, that's what, in my opinion, Silicon Valley is best at. Building big, giant new entities that spring from these major new trends. And there's no bigger trend than mobile and social coming together, right? That is absolutely fundamental. It will change everything we know about content. And so I hope that we can be one of those major pillars that get built during this amazing time of change.
You never got into the white labeling business.
Never, ever.
You
The
got
second
asked,
somebody
though.
says white label, I immediately cut them off and say that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've learned my lesson on white labeling
How
through
so?
previous startups,
Yeah.
and the second you white label, you immediately give up on your consumer vision. It always sounds like it depends. I mean, if you want to just be a platform company, you can go do that, but it always sounds attractive. As an entrepreneur, you're always going to have this, if you're building a consumer business, somebody says, well, I just want to like white label it, and it sounds attractive because they're going to pay you some money, and you can now make payroll for another 6 months or whatever. To me, it's a fate worse than death, because you basically now have to serve two masters: your consumer base and this other company, and that will dilute all of your energy, and it will really dramatically impact your ability to deliver a great product. So, for me, I've learned white label never going to happen unless we decided to, for some reason, had to completely pivot the company.
Yeah, if
and
250,000
to survive
people
or something.
weren't signing up every day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a large number of people signing up every
Right.
day.
Yeah.
Now, what about global? I mean,
Yeah, about 50% of our users are international, outside the U.S. Yeah,
but are you still largely an English?
no
language phenomenon?
Heavy China, Japan. We actually have an office in Beijing, and China was our very first international expansion.
That's got to be a fascinating place to be in the news business.
It is fascinating. Yes.
Talk about the limitations. Do you have to be careful about what people create in magazines? I mean, I'm not creating the Tiananmen Square magazine anytime soon.
Yeah.
Tiananmen
I don't know.
Square News.
Yeah, well, right now that particular capability is not enabled in China.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out what to do on that front. What we do now pulls from content from behind the Great Firewall, right? So it's all localized content, and other companies have had to vet it and so on for it to ultimately appear on Flipboard. So in that benefit, we get that benefit. Now, as we move to magazines, we'll have to figure out how we handle that. And I'm sure there'll be an answer there around partnerships that we could have. We have some great partnerships in China. For example, Sina Weibo is a major partner of ours. Ren, et cetera.
So you believe in engagement for internet companies in the United States, as opposed to maybe say Google, which is like, hey, we're not going to put our product in a place where it could be censored. You think maybe working inside the system is a better option?
I do. I think.
Why?
Well, I think that you have two options with China. You can either not participate at all, or you can participate and play by the rules that the Chinese government sets up. And I think if you try to do something in between, it's never going to work. They're going to block it. It's just So I think if you want to actually have a product that is used in China, it's something that you have to figure out how to do with the local government, with the with the partners, people who are savvy about China. The interesting thing about China too is that there are no sort of hard and fast rules. There's not like some list you can look at. You can do this, you can't do this. You have to really partner and figure that out with people who are extremely familiar with that market. And I believe over time that great content, like I said earlier, changes the world, and I think it will enlighten people in China. And I would prefer to participate in helping that enlightenment happen and help that over time people start to realize that censorship and other models aren't really viable in this new era.
It seems like the latest is, from what I've read and understand from companies operating there, dissension in words, okay. Getting together in public or inciting people to get together in a square, not okay. So actually, there's actually been a big step forward, which is, yes, you can criticize the government. Yes, you can criticize local officials. If you see corruption, we're going to actually address it. But we'd rather 100 people not show up on a street corner.
Yeah. I think that's accurate. And I think, over time, I really believe that things will open up in China, and I do believe that it will probably be the single largest place for downloads for mobile apps, ultimately. It already is our number 2 country right now.
It's mostly an Android phenomenon, obviously.
Yeah, and it's heavily Android, although there's a fair amount of iOS too.
But majority Android.
Majority Android, I agree. Yeah.
Which is the opposite here.
Yeah.
Is it that you have more? Do the iOS users use the product more?
We do see more engagement on iOS than Android.
The better looking too. The iOS users are no, but are they?
Yeah, we do see more engagement on iOS.
Do they sell for a different CPM, Android versus iOS users?
No, we don't. We never debundle the advertising. You advertise on Flipboard, and
How big is the company now? How many people you got? How many salespeople? I mean,
we have 3 salespeople. We're about 85 people total.
Okay.
So sales we have a New York office.
Yeah.
We're just beginning on the sales front. And again, what we've been focused on is helping the publishers sell the advertising, right? And then we also we're like air cover, for sales forces, that are out there.
Well, listen, continued success. The product is amazing. Mike McCue, everybody.
Thank you.
From Flipboard. Thanks for coming
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Hey, Tom Conrad is next up in this amazing episode, and he has been the CTO of Pandora since the very early days. He heads up that music genome project you've probably heard about. That's the one that lets you hear great related music based on you putting in just a song or a mood or any of that kind of stuff. And we really sat down and analyzed all the stuff they're doing over there, and you're going to learn a lot from this interview, so enjoy.
How quickly do you analyze a song? So if an album comes out today, how quickly is it genomed?
So we'll have things available typically on release date, because now we get stuff in advance of their street date. But we spend about 20 minutes on a pop song, maybe 40 minutes to an hour on a classical work. So it depends on the underlying musical sophistication.
Does one person do it, or do 2 people do it, and you compare how they tagged it to make sure they're not off the reservation?
About 10% of the analysis work is done by a second person, so we can do a kind of quality control check. It's actually such a coveted job, though, that most of the people that analyze music at Pandora have been doing it for 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 12 years. So they're really, really expert at it. The one thing I should add, though, is that while that's the kind of interesting, sexy part, it's just as important that we have now tens of billions of pieces of thumbs up and thumbs down data that help us really understand the other dimensions of music. Because I don't think it would be credible for me to sit up here and say, the only reason you like a song is because of the way the guitars are played. There's cultural dimensions, there's era dimensions, there's currency. And so by taking the thumbs up and thumbs down, and even the way that people multi-seed station, the way they put more than one artist in a station, that allows us to bring in all these other dimensions of music listening into the experience. And a lot of what we've done over the course of the last 6 or 8 years has been focused on that. How do we take advantage of this kind of big data opportunity to further personalize? And those are where some of the big breakthroughs have come. But we're not done. We still play songs.
Well, let's talk about that big data. I mean, how quickly do you know a song's going to be a hit? Because the thumbs up with I don't know how many people are using the system on a daily basis, but I'm assuming it's tens of millions of people
millions, sure.
per day. So when you have, Imagine Dragons or Blurred Lines or whatever comes into the system, and how quickly do you know like that's going to be a huge hit? And do you have like this predictive ability to determine if it's going to be awesome?
I think there's a pretty big opportunity there. I mean, actual hit picking is, I think, really more art than science, candidly. But in the data, certainly we can see things starting to emerge very quickly. Kind of take the first derivative of the feedback, and when that slope hits a certain point, you've got something magic in a particular context. That's not really. That's not fundamentally how we think about the job. I mean, we're really, really, really about how do we make like the perfect listening experience for you. Kind of whether it's the Blurred Lines, or the Imagine Dragons of the month is kind of intellectually interesting, but not terribly core to what we're trying to do, which is like, man, we want it to be all about you.
Right. So over time, me picking a Bob Dylan station and you picking a Bob Dylan station, we're not actually getting the same station. Our collective listening previously is being taken into account.
Yeah, all of that happens in real time too. As you start to give thumbs up and thumbs down, interact with the system, skip songs and so forth, the system is immediately responding in the very next song to you in particular. And so pretty quickly, my Bob Dylan station and your Dylan station would diverge.
Okay, so lots of competitors, lots of copycats. This month we saw Apple release a radio product. I went into it, I put in Bob Dylan, and it played me like 70s disco music literally 4 songs later, and I was like, oh my God, this is garbage, I'm going back to Pandora. But it was an absolutely horrific experience. Can anybody get this right, and has anybody really started to figure it out, or is it just too much work?
I mean, it's really hard. I mean, I'm sort of amazed that I'm in my 10th year of doing this at Pandora, and every day, like, there's a new challenge, and we unearth new mistakes that we're making. I don't, I get asked over the course of the last month a lot about Apple's entry into the market, and I think generally when it comes to competition, certainly need to pay attention to what these other players are doing, particularly big, sophisticated players like Apple. But I think more than anything, it's important to know every day like what you're going to be the best in the world at. And I mean, certainly you have to build technology and competence that actually supports the notion you're going to be the best in the world at. And for us, it's really about making the perfect playlist. So I think if we come to work every day, focus on that problem, make sure that our Dylan station isn't playing disco for you. I think.
How do you handle that? Like, an artist like Dylan who, folk, rock, blues, Christian, Yeah,
underneath the system, every time you create a station, there's a set of what we call channels that are competing to win for you. And so all of these channels, dozens of them, are proposing songs that might work in the context of your listening. And as you give feedback, it's tuning up and down the channels that are most influencing your results. So just conceptually, at least, a way to think about it is, there's a folk channel in the Dylan case, and there's a rock channel in the Dylan case, and there's this kind of probably like just a plain old classic rock, kind of channel, because there's probably an audience out there that thinks of Dylan just as a proxy for classic rock.
Interesting. Show us the latest app.
Yeah, sure.
So the app just got reskinned and redone for iOS 7, yeah?
It did.
What do you think of iOS 7? I mean, you've been in the business for a long time. You were one of the first mobile first. Well, you weren't mobile first. You were on the web first, but you were one of the first companies to really focus on the mobile experience, is how I should say it. So we pull up the iPad Touch.
This is working.
iPad Mini.
There it is.
Right.
Great. So we, I had a kind of funny reaction to iOS 7. I worked at Apple in the early 90s on the Macintosh, and kind of pretty tuned in to Apple and what they're doing. And I had sort of, one of the things I always admired about, iOS was it just felt like before they shipped even the 1.0 of the operating system, that there must have been an incredible period of iteration and refinement, just like get the jeweler's loop out and make every pixel perfect. And I worried a little bit that iOS 7 might, since it's such a kind of a restart of all of the visual identity of iOS, might kind of be lacking some of that refinement. And I think it is kind of true, at least for me, in the static screenshots, there's a credible case to worry about that. But certainly, I don't know, my own experience day to day with it is it's pretty delightful. And it's fun to kind of go back to the drawing board and start to reimagine applications using this new visual language. So I think it's probably will spur a period of creativity.
Could any company other than Apple get so many app developers to redo their fundamental design? I mean,
I think
Pandora is such a great big company. You're under no obligation to redesign your app because Apple redoes their operating system. Yet you did, right? And so did everybody.
Yeah, I think we're in this a kind of design-centric period of the industry, and we all take both the visual character and the interaction design of the applications we build really, really seriously. And so kind of the last thing you want to do is to have your application stand out as kind of an outlier on a platform. So it's always hard to rejigger your roadmap when something new comes along that's going to ship in 2 or 3 months, but it's just part of the job.
Yeah.
This is our new iPad application. We were lucky enough back a million years ago to get an iPad before anyone from Apple, and were available the day that the tablet launched.
Did you have to go to Apple's campus to work on it, like in a locked room?
No, they actually bolted it to a table in a room. They put their own lock to put on the door.
In your office?
They did, yeah.
They literally put their own Apple lock?
They did.
Have Apple logo on it?
Yeah, exactly.
And then they give you the keys to the lock to the office in your...
It was something, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do they give you an Apple security guard?
Yeah. So we've always had a, custom designed interface for the iPad. But last year we did a pretty massive redesign of our mobile experience and brought a lot of the features that we've been refining on the web, things like social and deeper information about the artists you're discovering and so forth, into the phone form factor. And then we spent a good chunk of this year delivering that same experience to the tablet, which just launched about a month ago. Well, actually not even. I guess it launched the same day iOS 7 launched. I wish I could tell you I had perfect premonition back in January when we started that on September 19th would be the day to launch, but it wasn't quite like that. We just got lucky. But what's nice about this experience is that I miss that thing of you'd sit down on the couch and listen to a new record and pass the album art back and forth and talk to the person next to you. You can kind of have that experience with this version of Pandora. So we're presenting information about the artist. We talk about other artists like Animal Magic. I can go in and learn more about them in this panel that reveals on the right. I can kind of get all of this information about the music that I'm discovering. I can go back and look at previous songs and rate them. One of the things that's been fun about Pandora, I talked at the very beginning about trying to keep the experience really, really simple. But of course, we all need to ship features that appeal to kind of particular segments within the audience. So it might be that maybe only 20% of our audience wants to make complex stations. So we have to find a way to enable that, but not to confuse the interface. So lots of fun stuff kind of hidden away. You can go in and add variety to a station. We'll make recommendations about other artists you might seed into this station. This Portishead radio station is perhaps the oldest station on Pandora. I made this the day we launched back in 2005. We have our own kind of social environment inside of Pandora, so you can find people that you think of as your musical mentors inside of Pandora. You can follow them. You can see the stations that they're making, the songs that they're discovering. You can...
How many people use that kind of social features? When you made it, it might have seemed like, oh my God, this is for everybody, but is it?
In our experience, it's not. Pandora is a very personal experience. I think maybe music in general is a really personal experience. And so I think some of this stuff like, song sharing and so forth that of course you can do inside Pandora into our network or into Facebook and Twitter is something that maybe appeals to, less than 10% of the audience. So it's been fun to kind of take all of that depth of functionality and bring it to the iPad. And we've got just a really great response from people so far.
Awesome. And so what's next? You have all this amazing competition coming in. There must be people pushing you to go into many different directions.
Yep.
And you, of course, have the music industry very much, how do you put it? There seems to be different people assessing the value of internet radio in different ways. Yeah.
Sure.
And so what's the future, and how do you manage those relationships with some artists who are like, I'm not getting enough money, and other artists who are like, this is the greatest thing, I'm getting so many people buying tickets to my concerts?
Well, let me just touch on one thing about the future. About half of all radio listening happens in the car, And our ambition from the very beginning was to sort of pave the path to the future of radio. And so for us to fulfill that ambition, we really need to be successful in the car. And so we're right in the middle of like what I would call generation 1 of Pandora in the automotive context. We've done 100 different custom automotive integrations that allow you to bring your phone into the car, connect it over Bluetooth or USB. We project the user interface of Pandora into the dash. You never touch your phone. You get an experience that feels like it's native to the car. So that's been a huge area of investment for us for the last several years.
But not in the Tesla, which is crazy. It's not on the Model S yet. What's going on?
There's a long story there, a sad story, but for another day. We'll get there.
I mean, they have tune-in radio.
I know. Anyway, long story.
Thank you.
Well, the short version is this. In the beginning, when they came along asking us to work together, we were like neck deep in other automotive integrations, and so we just had to kind of like say like, hey, Toyota's pretty important. And then when we came back around, they were kind of like, we're just trying to make the car charge.
Yeah.
So it's just a question of priorities
Timing and
timing. So we'll get there.
Yeah.
So with respect to the music industry, it's a super complicated topic. I mean, at every tier, there are, at the record labels, there are marketers who love Pandora, who do all kinds of things with us. At the recording artist level, we have literally hundreds of bands who come through Pandora and perform and dig into their data and to understand what's happening inside of Pandora with their music. I think there's a huge opportunity for us to do more there. Same thing on the songwriter side. And then, of course, there are people in other parts of the ecosystem that are just trying to figure out what this new world looks like when it's not, 3 big FM radio conglomerates that are choosing 100 hits a year. The model that Pandora suggests is just really different, and they're trying to sort out in their mind what that looks like.
And talk radio, podcasts.
You're going to have
I'm going to have Swell on, I
you
know,
have
but
Swell up here,
you must, 14 years in, this conversation must come up every year. Do we get into talk radio? We figured out the music genome.
Yeah, I think it's, we're still really, really focused on getting the music thing just right, and I'm sure that we'll do other things over time, but...
well, it has been 14 years.
It has been, which is just that's a drop in the bucket compared to our 200-year history.
Yeah. Okay. With that, Tom, continued success,
All right, thanks.
and thanks for coming out.
All right, thank you.